Oh,
Ooh.
we're back, people. The duo is back. We are together again, as it should be, on another Dense Snickers podcast with your hosts, Ryan. Happy birthday, by the way.
Woo.
And Benjamin. Let's go. Let's fucking. What are we talking about, Ryan? What we got cooking
Let me
in the
tell you what
kitchen?
we're talking about today, okay? We're talking about people avoiding reality. We've got all this talk about the metaverse, people escaping into some alternate dimension in the web. What does that even mean? Okay? Why are people interested in that? Why are people interested in virtual real estate? Why are you trying to escape the real world? We're going to be talking about escapism, people avoiding reality, and perhaps even the consequences of doing so. Now, Ben, what do you want to bring up first here?
So I think I'm going to bring in. If you guess the book, folks, you win. Write in the comments right now what book you think I'm going to talk about, and you'll win one free squat plug. Ding, ding, ding. XL size only.
That's what I'm talking about.
Listen, folks. If there's one thing you take away from this podcast in its entirety, not just this video, but everything that come out of both Ryan and I's mouth, it's that you should live in such a way to make yourself laugh, and that's the only thing you should care about. It's pretty simple. I think, one of the best ways to live. You're not living for anybody else. You're living for yourself. You're making yourself laugh, so you're your own best and favorite comedian. You're having a fucking great time in life because you're just taking things so lightly. You're floating through life. It's great. Some people may look at you and think that you're crazy because you're laughing at your own jokes hysterically or whatever. But just remember that those who call you crazy, they just can't hear the music to which you dance to. Anyways, back to the subject of this podcast, which is escaping the section of the Spoke Zarathustra that's super relevant. There are a few, but this one specifically, of the Afterworldsmen. In this section, Zarathustra talks about the religious folk, the weak and the diseased, the ill, that are so desperate for rejecting the real world in favor of their illusions. The sick and the dying who despise the body. They invent the things of heaven. And so it started with them. It started, I would say, with religion, unless maybe there's something beforehand, but that started this whole idea of, this life is not the real one that you should be living for. You should be living for the next life, what comes after you die. As if anyone could ever be, how could anyone ever be so arrogant to assume that they know? But yeah, so that's where we're starting. Ryan, do you have any input on the religious perspective of looking at this world and this life as the stepping stone in which you want to kind of almost like a cutscene in a video game where you want to skip it because you want to get to the real game, but there is no real game after because there is no heavens that we know of. Go for it, Ryan. What you think?
Yeah, well, let's see here. I think a lot of people misinterpret a lot of things that they read in religious texts and think that living a life where they aren't reaching their full potential doesn't matter because they'll have a second life, that they'll get everything they've ever desired. And these sort of things bring about, I guess, a lack of understanding of what's really important. If we're here now, in the present, then we can do whatever we want. And yeah, unless you truly have seen an afterlife or had one of these death experiences or whatever, you truly don't know. And there's a quote I really like where you can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. Now, what does that mean? What does that really mean? If you're avoiding your responsibilities and tasks in lieu of your understanding that this reality doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, then what are you really achieving? You know? If you forego all the basic necessities and items that you need to survive and live, what's going to happen to you? You know, you're going to slowly degrade, or you're going to miss out on all the opportunities that you have. Time is not going to stop because you're depressed, because you broke your leg, because you're incapable of making a decisive decision. You need to face reality and overcome your problems, because ignoring them isn't going to make them go away. And there's a quote I really liked in the section that we just read, Ben, which is, "Suffering and incapacity that created all afterworlds, this and that brief madness of bliss, which is experienced only by those who suffer most deeply." And we can talk about that in a minute if you want to make another point.
No, go off on that. Go off on that quote, because if it's one that stood out to you, then I want to hear why it stood out to you.
Okay, so there's a clear experience that you gain from suffering, and it's extremely valuable for your development and cultivation of the two cores of wisdom: understanding of value and self-reflectiveness. Without them, it's doubtful that you could execute virtue that is at the heart of our practical lives. So if you haven't suffered or experienced any, I don't really like the word oppression, but some form of suffering in your life, it gives you a great perspective. You know you don't want to suffer in that way again, or you see others that are suffering, or where you can see the signs or the place where they may be going. So you can be virtuous in your behavior because you've experienced it. What's a good point for this? It's like politicians when they try and understand the wishes and qualms of the working class, when they may have come from a elite upper class family. What is their perspective going to be when they've never experienced those lowly living standards and lack of ability to get what they desire, a feeling of inability to escape the environment they're in? So perspective, suffering, all of these things are a necessity for wisdom, for your understanding of the world around us, which is a great point, which is suffering is essential for anyone to reach their highest potential.
I agree. I do agree 100% with that statement. I think that it's kind of a twisted perspective, but if you can look at suffering and I would say maybe unpleasant or uncomfortable or unfavorable situations in life with kind of like, happiness, if you will, you can turn a pessimistic view into an undying and unyielding optimism for the future. Suffering is inherent to life. What Nietzsche is saying in this section, earlier in the section, he's saying that these people that have created the illusion of the afterworld, they could not handle the suffering and the true nature, the harsh nature of reality, the death, the disease, the loss of loved ones, the unfortunate situations that you have no control over that you may find yourself in terms of all of a sudden one day, I don't know, break whatever. You imagine the worst situation: breaking a leg, getting told you have stage 4 cancer, and the peak of your life, whatever it is. That these people, these weak people, these sick and dying people, not literally, but morally, were unable to process and unable to move forward and grow from the pressures around their life. And so they turned it into a bitter poison and tried to poison this life in favor of some grandiose illusion of all happy time. You're just going to be, in with God, and all your loved ones are going to be there, and there's going to be no bad, no death, no nothing. It's just infinite happiness, yay, yay, happiness, good times. And it's not exactly the best way to be living this life, the only life that we do know, which is here and now. I want to go back to your point that you brought up about perspective, which is something you are completely accurate when you were describing, is that I think organized religion is the bane of religion in itself. I think mythology and stories and religion work on a tribal level, um, without, and they start to deteriorate, like almost like they get too big and then they collapse upon themselves. Perspective. What do I want to say about the perspective of religion is that the organized religion has done what Nietzsche is talking about. Nietzsche's not really, he's criticizing the organized version of these religions. Because if you look at the Bible or any of these stories, any of these mythologies, as stories that relate to this life, to that relate to how to make heaven, how to bring heaven here, because that's the main point of all of these stories and mythologies. They're all teachings of what to avoid and what will bring you great pain and bring you into hell, because they understood, the true creators of all of these stories and mythologies, that combined all of them together. They understood that there are certain ways that you can live in life and you will be in hell. If you choose the super, I don't know, super short-sighted, narrow-sighted, super negative, selfish way to live life, where you don't care about anybody other than yourself and you don't care about anything other than pleasure all the time, you're going to be in hell, in like whatever circle of hell that is. You will create hell on earth for yourself. Same thing with heaven. They say, here's a general rule book, general guides that you can look at and see if you can learn anything from. But here's what we noticed is that if you live this way, you can get to heaven. But they don't mean get to heaven like you die and then you go there. Like you make heaven on earth for yourself. Like you can make the most blissful, happy, pleasant existence you can, excluding the unfortunate, excluding like the super rare, unfortunate, things that happen in life that's just inherent to all living things.
Yeah.
But I think that, yeah, I don't want to rant too long, but I think that's exactly what your people need to really understand is it's these stories and all that go into it are not, it's not like you don't follow these rules and you don't sin and you go to church every Sunday and you don't do anything and you stay cowardice and spineless and just, like the Jerry meme from Rick and Morty where I just kept crawling and it kept working. And then you get to heaven, and then you have the fun, and that's the party. That's not what it is. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be living here and creating the heaven here on earth. So sorry, I don't want to rant too long, but that was my input on your perspectives.
Yes, and the thing is that I think the ancient Greek philosophers really understood this, is that happiness isn't created by your surroundings, it happens within. You can be suffering, like you said, stage 4 cancer, and some people that will shatter them, and some people will live out their life to the fullest, because there is a date on when their departure will arrive. And so it's very interesting to see how different people react to the burdening of suffering that falls upon them. And it's very true. I don't think that if we never suffered, I don't think we could truly understand what it means to be happy. I think your whole understanding of your life would be quite meaningless, because there's nothing creating that urge for you to maintain the part in your life, or sorry, the life that you have for yourself. But what was I saying about the ancient Greek philosophers? They really believe that, or the Stoics, they believe that happiness was created within yourself. That it doesn't matter what you're doing or the suffering that is occurring, you can still completely be in tune with your happiness and balance within yourself. And when we externalize all of these things and we allow outside things that are out of our control to impact our emotions, then we're becoming a slave to the suffering rather than embracing the suffering and trying to conquer it ourselves. So suffering for me equals growth, and I really like this other part in the section we read where Nietzsche said, "I carried my own ashes to the mountains. I invented a brighter flame for myself." So he was at his utter destruction, full of suffering. He went off to the mountains, isolated, or perhaps, but he invented a brighter flame for himself. So he was able to transform these ashes that had partial amounts of cinder in them, reinvent them, and allow himself to be even brighter than before. And if that isn't a great allegorical or symbolic understanding of what suffering is. You know, you get broken down and you build yourself stronger. You create a foundation that will not get destroyed from the simplest of storms. Your house is strong, you're firm in your beliefs, and your flame is bright. And I'll leave with this last thing. One must extinguish his flame in order to understand the value of the flame within oneself, so that the cinders may be reignited into a roaring bonfire.
Beautiful. That's the mythology around the phoenix, right?
Exactly, yeah.
To rise again from the ashes anew every time. Stronger, more powerful, wiser every time.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Now,
Well, we could talk more about some of the examples, because that was kind of, we touched on how religion could be used as a scapegoat or a kind of running away from this reality. There are plenty more in this technological, materialistic worldview that the zeitgeist has been consumed by. Would you like to discuss other examples of this, or how are you feeling about the time frame right now?
yeah, I say with 3 minutes maybe, but I'll say this. I think that people are just so blatant about their lack of willpower and strength that they're willing to just take anything that's given to them because of the progression of rapid innovation technology. Oh, the metaverse is coming? Oh, I guess it can't be that bad, you know? Or just accepting these things as fate when we as humans, as a group collective, have a choice in the matter. So we should reject humanity and return to monk.
It is true. It is true to some degree. I think we need to strive to. I think we need to be better historians of prior civilizations. I think that would do us the best. In our, ironically, I think the more we as a species look back to our ancestors, the better chance we have of succeeding in our future.
Yeah. And the U.S. is like a laughing stock right now with this like wokeism and liberalization of society and all this. And I think Putin gave a speech about this recently where he was like, none of this is new, you know, rejecting the societal norms like gender and all those things, and we're rejecting I guess you can say like, whatever, like the comparison of like the Ten Commandments or something along those lines, where it's like it's set in stone and now we're breaking apart that stone and in the idea of social innovation. But Russia experienced this in the 70s and 80s, and most of it is Marxist-based ideologies of tearing apart society in order for us to attain a better life. And we've seen what happens time and time again to many civilizations, where it's like they just fall apart because there's no stones where the rules are written anymore. The rules are thrown out the board and it becomes chaotic.
Yes, I want to read a quote that goes in line with that. I just have to, I just have to find it again. Uh, but it goes right. Here it is. Okay. So this quote I'm going to read that goes right into Ryan's point about the destruction of, you could say, the foundations of a society, because it's all fundamentally philosophical, and if you can just undermine, it's a great way to destroy society for sure. Here's the quote, and then I'll try and relate it to the aforementioned point here. It was okay. I teach mankind a new will, to desire this path that men have followed blindly, and to call it good, and no more to creep aside from it, like the sick and the dying. Wait a minute. Oh no, that wasn't the quote, Ryan. I read the wrong quote.
That's okay.
I'm trying to find the quote that he just where he was talking about the people that destroy what is but have no replacement for it.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly, I mean, what's kind of happening too. It's not like there's a real replacement or real sound, ideology that's going to come forth after said thing is destroyed. But that's pretty much the essence of a quote that I wanted to read, is that be careful. Oh, maybe to the top about lightning.
Yeah, but definitely be careful with people who promise a better life with no real solution for it, and people will blindly follow along. I think that's definitely a big issue. But we're kind of running low on time here, so I'll leave with this quote, and then you can finish off. This is one of my favorite quotes, which is, people love comfortable lies and hate uncomfortable truths. And I think if we all learn to love the uncomfortable truths, we'll be all better for it.
Let's get this bread. Focus on your Sigma grind. Don't be jumping off into bridges because a girl said no to you. Let's go.
Poor Nietzsche's friend, huh?
Ultimate simp, baby. Get out of here. We don't need ya.
Yeah. So keep it OG pussy as always. We're going to keep it gang, gang, dang, dang. We're going to keep propelling forward, creating our bonfires within ourselves, not allowing outside things that are out of our control to dictate how we feel on a certain day. We're always happy. We're always grinding. We're embracing the suffering. We're getting into the cold. We're tanning our balls. We're living, brother. We're living.
Oh, no.
We're here. We're here in this life, and we're going to experience it to the fullest.
That's goddamn right. That's right. We are. Yes, that should be the goal, people. Experience life to the fullest. You only get one. Stop thinking you have all the time in the world. You don't. Life is short. Get to it, people.
That's what I'm talking about. Dense thinkers out!